All right, let me get to this next story because it's one of those things when you first look at it, as I said in our sort of tease to this, you hear about people getting hacked or companies getting hacked. They pay ransoms, they get their account back. They usually involve thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that's for organizations. Something else is going on, and in an article, this appeared in the Globe and Mail, Kathryn Blaze-Baum highlights a case where a woman, just a woman with in this particular case, a small business, finds out she's been hacked, and the efforts, the length she has to go to get her account back, and at the end of it all, have to pay money. Kathryn Blaze-Baum is on the line. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Let me begin by asking, you highlight a particular woman in this case, and I think sort of just to follow it before we get to its conclusion, she gets hacked. She doesn't really make much of it. Then she decides, they have a process. She's not the only one. She'll go through it, go through Meta, and everything will be okay. And it turned out to be exactly the opposite. What happened?
So in a word, nothing. She submitted the online form and sent tons of emails, as had a bunch of people that we interviewed who had similarly been hacked or had their account disabled for purported community standards violations. And no one at Meta responded. She was met with total radio silence. And as she put it, a brick wall. She found it super stressful and was getting, increasingly anxious. And so, she started talking to people in the neighborhood, and, she kind of learned that nobody had been able to get help. And then someone suggested a different route. They said, talk to a guy named Mo. He'll take care of it for you.
By the way, that's my favorite line in the whole story. Talk to a guy named Mo. So, of course, no one knew what that meant, but she found out quickly enough.
Right. And what was interesting was we interviewed, I think it was 11 Instagram users, and a couple of them had actually spoken with this Mo character. So I was very intrigued. We were very intrigued about who he was. So it turned out this mysterious Mo is an Ontario man, and he told her that he had a contact inside Meta who was willing to take money under the table to help expedite her account recovery. And within 12 hours, she got her account back.
Wow.
It cost her just over $1,100. That was according to an invoice that I saw. And the invoice described the service as, quote, hacked IG and FB recovery, end quote. So this is something that the company should be doing for free for their users through a front door process. And instead, when users are finding themselves met with this quote-unquote brick wall, as she put it, they're finding other ways to get their accounts back, and it's costing them money.
But it's worth mentioning here, Meta or Facebook has what's called a verified user program, don't they? Don't you pay extra in case something happens to you where you can get up the ladder and get it done faster, resolved quicker?
Well, that's how it's supposed to work. You should be able to sort of pay to play and get a bit of better sort of customer support. And there seems to be mixed reviews about that service. I spoke with somebody who tried to use the Meta verified route to get her account back and was sort of, hit with the same circuitous, submit the forms, talk to a chat bot, no one will help you.
So it's a guarantee of nothing, basically.
Yeah, no, we spoke, again, 11 Instagram users, and not a single one of them was able to get their account back through official channels.
So then the bottom line here, so she pays her money, she gets her account back, and that's all well and good. But then the problem is you dug a little deeper. This has happened apparently on a regular basis. There is someone, or perhaps more than one person, at Meta who's facilitating this, right?
Oh, there seems to be many based on the reporting. The reporting shows through, a review of court records and interviews that there are, sort of Meta insiders who they have access to an internal account recovery mechanism. It's known as OOPS for online operations, which is just perfect. And OOPS is meant for employees or contractors to seek assistance with their own accounts or those of their family and friends. So a lot of employees and contractors have access to this. Instead of using it solely for themselves or their family or friends, some of these Meta employees and contractors are abusing the mechanism for a profit. And I asked Meta, the degree to which this is happening, because they are well aware of the problem, by the way, and I can tell you a little bit about that. But they did not tell me any official numbers around the number of cases that they found in which their insiders were implicated.
So you said they're aware of this. So aware of this to the point where they have actually taken some of these people who have been caught to court?
Exactly. So effectively, Meta has in the past fired people for abusing this system, and it sort of seemed like, okay, this happened, they fired people. But that was in 2022, and 3 years later, this is very much still happening, and that's based on interviews and these court cases. So Meta is suing these quote-unquote brokers, that's our word for it, these intermediaries who are collaborating or colluding with these Meta insiders. And one of the cases actually, or two of the cases that we found, centered on quote-unquote brokers in Ontario.
So I guess people hearing this are thinking, well, what is the advice here? Because it's not, it's not unusual that someone's account gets hacked. So what should you be doing here to expedite this if you're one of those people?
The first thing that you should do is make sure that you have two-factor authentication on your account, which is, basically a security mechanism that, you get sent a code, and if you don't enter the code, no one can access your account. So that's step number one. But if you do find yourself in this situation, it's not going to probably go great for you, filling out the online forms. So if you happen to know someone or know someone who knows someone within Meta who can use their access to this OOPS mechanism, that's one way to go about it. And in some cases, there are employees who are doing this for their friends and for their family, which is how the mechanism is intended to be used, so long as they're not taking payment or bribes.
Okay. It still sounds kind of iffy, right? I mean, you might get lucky, you might not. But I wonder, too, if you're one of those people and you do get approached and you pay the money, and you know that something's fishy here, can you report that to Meta directly?
I mean, I haven't really seen any amount of back and forth between Meta and its users based on the cases that we saw. In fact, people are suing, not only is Meta suing brokers, but we've got many cases of users suing Meta or their inaction on getting their account back.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem as though there's going to be much luck. So just try not to get hacked or have your account disabled in the first place.
Yeah, and I guess as you said, a two-factor authentication is so much out there right now. It's on so many different sites. It really is a safeguard. That's probably, as you said, the first thing you should be doing.
Absolutely.
I would ask one last thing, though. Is this Facebook unique? Because I know this originally happened on Instagram. It's any of the Meta sort of programs, whether it's Instagram, WhatsApp?
Lots of court cases also cite Facebook. So it's all of it. And I should also just say that we did ask Meta about this, and we put somewhere in the order of 30 specific and itemized questions to the company over the course of 2 months, and our questions were individually answered. Instead, they basically told us that the use and provision of unsanctioned account services goes against its policies. I pressed them and said, well, if you guys aren't going to help people, you should expect an underground market to emerge. And I wasn't met with much in the way of specifics.
Wow. All right. Unfortunately, we have to leave it at that. Excellent job, by the way. Thank you so much. Great story.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Look, again, if you're one of those people who've had an account hacked, you don't have to be a big business. The idea of having to pay money to get it back, just be aware. Two-factor authentication, however they call it, that's something you need to be doing.